We are joined by District Attorney Tory Johnson. General Johnson, if you would please introduce who you brought with you and then begin your budget presentation.
Thank you. That's right, I'm Tory Johnson. I'm the District Attorney. To my right is Michael Brook, who's my Chief Financial and Administrative Officer and responsible really for our budget. Really, I don't, in the interest of time, I don't have a great deal that I intend to cover. I think I will highlight just one thing. The mayor's proposal, I mean, it has got in there 2 new positions for 2 new assistant district attorney positions that would be designed to concentrate on domestic violence cases. This is, for those of you, and this is kind of confusing, but the district attorney's office is a state office. It's a state constitutional office that is elected every 8 years. But if you look in any of the budget materials, you'll see that the city over the years has provided a great deal of funding in the way of personnel, many lawyers, victim witness coordinators, and others who in the city's determination, and correctly so, were necessary for there to be the adequate delivery of services by the DA's office. In other words, the state simply didn't provide and hasn't provided enough resources to kind of do everything that needs to be done in Davidson County on a day-to-day basis. And so as part of that process, as I think all of you know, the mayor has been looking at the city's overall response to domestic violence. There was an article in the Tennessean recently about that. And as part of that, he's proposing to add 2 additional positions to our budget. So we're actually, now there's a small cut in there, but when all the smoke clears, the idea is to cover some rent piece, and also 2 additional assistant district attorney positions.
Okay, thank you, General. Councilman Stein, you are recognized.
General, it's easy to intuit if we have additional police officers handling domestic violence. Explain to us what positive impact having 2 more folks in your office focusing on domestic violence can have on domestic violence in Davidson County.
Well, domestic violence cases are probably require a lot of effort on the part of the lawyers and on the victim witness coordinators, because these are cases, number one, there are a lot of them. Number 2, these are cases, unlike most, where the victim of a crime is very anxious to prosecute. In many of the domestic violence cases, victims are not anxious to prosecute. They've got a lot of concerns about how that's going to impact them, how it's going to impact their family, their children, and so forth. They need a lot of support from our office in an effort to get them to come to court, to be in court, to testify, and so forth. And so the addition of any new lawyers would be that it would allow, simply, it would allow us 2 more people who are able to focus on dealing with these victims, primarily with the victims, the witnesses, preparing the cases. It's a labor-intensive sort of work.
And you have a sort of a complicated way of I think paying your lawyers here. I mean, you've got a lot of vacant positions, and my assumption is that the way you're able to attract and pay attorneys is you're using some of this money, the vacant positions, to help pay salaries of folks that are there so that you can be competitive. Is this enough money to pay for the positions?
Well, what we have is this situation. The state, as I said, we get a little more than half our budget from the state, and a lot of that is in personnel and provides for the assistant district attorneys. And there's a state pay scale or a state pay plan. we now have 25 Metro paid assistant district attorneys, but there is no official Metro pay plan for those 25 assistants. And over the last 30-odd years, when Metro first started adding assistant district attorneys, we paid them in accordance with or in line with our state attorney. So that if a Metro attorney, it didn't make any difference which payroll you were on. If you had been in the office 5 years, you essentially were paid the same amount of money. However, the problem is on the Metro side is that we often are, and it all depends on individual budget years, but often in recent times we don't get enough money projected in the budget for salaries, and so consequently we are short on salary money, and the positions, the empty positions that you see, the vacant positions, now I will say not all of them are full-time, but 5, 6 or so are full-time. Are vacant simply because we are using those salary dollars in order to pay the Metro attorneys, roughly the Metro attorneys, the 25 attorneys, to keep them in line with the state system. And while the mayor's proposal is valuable, and that's something we want to do, it does not solve the problem that I've been talking with Mr. Riebling, with the administration, about the fact that we're still in a bind over salary dollars, and by adding 2 new lawyers, we're only exacerbating or making that system worse. So, I mean, we don't know the number at this point. I know that obviously it's contingent upon there being more money available, but if there were an across-the-board raise and so forth, it's hard to figure out what those numbers would be, but we're certainly somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 that we're not sure where that's going to come from and how we would exactly cover that in order to, at the same time, be able to fill those two new domestic violence positions.
Well, it certainly sounds to me that having a pay plan for those lawyers would be more efficient and more equitable long term, and I would think that that's something we ought to be moving to.
Well, that is certainly the goal. I would like to see that we would have something that we could bring. I mean, we've had lots of fits and starts over the years, but it's never materialized into for years it didn't used to be a problem. It's only been a problem in the last 10 years or so where that's become a difficulty, that not having a pay plan has been a problem.
Council Lady Berry, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I wanted to just commend you for increasing the domestic violence case focus. I think that's really important in our community. And I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about some of the numbers I see here. So you've got an $86,500 reduction for the gun violence grant and gang prosecution grant. Can you talk a bit about what that's, you say a limited impact, but I see articles in the paper all the time. I get messages from constituents who are seriously concerned about gangs in their community. What's that going to do?
Well, that was a federal grant that we had for a number of years. It paid for an assistant who worked closely with both the police department and the federal government to find cases that ought to be of typically people who are doing gang-related and gun-related crimes, and try to move them into the federal system. And with them going, that's not going to be as easy to do. We won't have somebody focused solely on doing that. But we are still trying to certainly put our resources toward looking at gangs and coordinating with the police department in that regard. So
this elimination will basically make it so that there will be no liaison who will be actually responsible for that. So you'll just spread the responsibility across
Correct. I mean,
folks.
there's no question we'd be better off, I mean, if, in a perfect world, if we had people to devote full time to gang activity. I think Nashville has gotten to the point now where that's the case, but as the reality is that we've got people that are splitting their time and splitting their resources, our resources, to cover that while still doing other tasks within the office.
And, you know, I know that this budget is a very complicated thing with a lot of asks from a lot of different places. Is this something that if we were able to find the money, you think would be an important element to restore back to make sure that we are addressing the gang issue?
Well, I think it could be a yes. I mean, certainly we felt it was a positive thing to do. We were answerable to the federal government. I might do things a little differently if we had a position to do that. But again, the problem is that every position we add, it only puts more pressure on our salary difficulties, and I'm just simply I'm reluctant to do that. That's the problem. Without solving the salary situation, we really don't accomplish anything.
Okay. And as far as the reduction in your 23,800, the recommended reduction, you say that you're going to determine what that is. Have you decided what that's going to be yet?
I mean, no. I mean, again, we don't have a lot of flexibility there. It's probably going to be in personnel, or it's going to be in timing as far as hiring or something along those lines.
Okay.
Because we really the vast majority of our budget is either fixed as in rent or in personnel.
And my final question, and thank you for your patience, do you have any idea what your overall loss in funds has been since, say, 2006, 2007?
No, I couldn't get it for you.
Can you get me that number?
Now, of course, we also remember too that we have losses both on the state and the city side. And to be honest, we've been very fairly treated, I think, by both the state and the city administration. The biggest impact has been the salary issue that I explained just a minute ago.
Okay.
And has been and continues to be.
Okay, so that right now is the thing that is the
That's
biggest
the main
concern.
driver that causes us the greatest problems, in which we have to keep attorney positions or victim witness coordinator positions or support staff positions open in order to keep the lawyers paid in lockstep, is which we're
Right, so you're just moving that money around in a way to
Correct.
compensate them. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Councilman Holloman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, General Johnson, for being here. I wanted to follow up with you on the salary issue. If I understood correctly, are you saying that the two positions that are being proposed to be added are not proposed at a level that would actually allow you to hire them and pay them on par now?
No, what I'm
Okay.
saying is, no, the money that's being proposed to hire those two positions would be fine.
Okay.
But
As they increase.
But that there are 25 other lawyers that will, throughout the year, if I keep them tied to the state salary, which I've done even before I was district attorney, we've always done that.
Right.
That's going to cost some extra amount of money that's not in the budget. I mean,
And that'll happen in this fiscal year.
And that's going to happen in this fiscal year.
Okay, so
And
you could start
adding
them,
two
but
lawyers,
you're-
it's only going to make that imbalance worse. I mean, we don't know exactly what that figure would be, but we're thinking it's somewhere in the, as I say, $60,000 to $70,000 range.
And if I understand you correctly, would prevent you from having a vacant slot available from which you would pull those salary dollars and distribute
Correct.
it out to even out the problem.
Right.
Okay, let me ask you this. How many vacant slots do you currently have that you utilize basically as a place to go get extra salary dollars?
Well, I think we have 12 positions, but about half of those are not full positions. Some of them aren't even part-time positions, but we have probably 6 people that are full-time positions, unfilled. Some lawyers, some victim witness coordinator. I mean, some lawyers, some support staff, maybe an investigator.
Yeah.
But
Correct.
5 or 6 positions.
Yeah. And if those were filled, would the state cover a portion of that, or that's all
that
money
would
that would have to be found in order to utilize it?
Correct. Those are all people that were initially put into our budget by the city to do some particular task, or as we needed additional support staff or whatever to keep up with the work.
Can you tell us what the dollar figure would be to actually solve that at this point?
We can get it to.
We can get it to you.
Okay.
It would probably be, I don't know, whatever I said would have a very good chance
I
of being
understand.
wrong.
Okay. Well,
But we can certainly get that.
I would like to know that number.
Sure.
And as well as, I guess, what you think, even if you didn't fill those positions, but if you hired both of these attorneys that are proposed, what additional funds you anticipate in the upcoming fiscal year to level out everyone's pay to keep them in accordance with the state
We can certainly get
pay
you
rate?
that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Sorry, Councilman. Go ahead.
If I could ask just one more question, this puts you on the spot a little bit, but I noticed that when we look down at the PD's budget, the public defender suggests that if these additional positions are added, there's a statutory obligation that there be equity in pay between the PD and the DA. Do you agree with that assessment, or can you comment on that at all?
Well, I mean, I think that I think and I don't know, I can't speak on exactly how the Metro's Public Defender's Office, what their salary scale is as far as the lawyers are concerned.
Okay.
Because they're not technically within the state system, but the state
Correct.
system, is my understanding, is the state, assistant public defender, assistant DA on the state system paid the same amount of money.
Okay. Okay, I think that answers my question.
I'm not, and I haven't looked at the
Well, in
information
fairness,
you're
it's in her
referring to.
memo. I'll ask her
haven't-
about it.
Yeah.
Since you're here, I thought I'd ask you about it.
I believe whatever she says, so.
Okay, wow.
Council Lady Moore, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I was just looking at one of your line items that I'm curious about, and that is the social worker position. Some are funded, some are not, and what is their capacity? What do they do? Thank you.
Those are all victim witness coordinators or victim advocates. We have 16 of them that basically work everything from child sex abuse cases to domestic violence cases to the 6 criminal courts. They deal with the victims of violent crime. That is, they deal with the victims and the victims' families. They answer their questions. They make referrals to outside services. They meet them in court. They stay with them in court. They are their liaison and advocate within the office. They're absolutely, and I have to say, the city has long ago said that that was a real priority, and that's why we have 16 essentially city-funded positions, which there's no other city in the state that can say that through the commitment that the Metro Council and the administration has made over the years. But they're worth their weight in gold as far as, and what they do in addition, I should say, is they make the lawyers that much more productive because they do a lot of things that when I was an assistant DA, I had to do in trying to talk to victims and answer a lot of their questions that was taking my time away from, say, working on the case itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Claiborne, you're recognized.
Thank you. General, just a question for clarity here, and I'm sure all of this is wrapped into the discussion that you've already responded to on salaries, but when I look at your listing of employees, some of these employees on here are shown as having salaries of just $200, $300, $400. Some of them are shown as having salaries of $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000. Help me understand what that.
Historically, and this goes back into the 60s, actually, and the 70s, there was a time when the the Metro supplemented the pay of state assistant district attorneys. This was before the the state had much of a pay plan for assistant DAs. And the theory was that being an assistant DA in an urban area was more expensive than being an assistant DA in a rural area. And so the cities, and Metro was major cities, the big four, they all did different things to supplement those salaries. Some could be a few $100s, some could be a few $1,000s. And what you're seeing, many of those positions are still sort of residual in the budget, but many of them go back to the 60s and 70s.
Okay, so all of these then are state employees, and these are supplements.
And they're correct. They're state employees that have gotten over time historically Metro supplements, but so they're not they're not full-time. They're full-time employees, but they're really mostly paid by the state.
But Metro is not funding their total salary.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Now there are but there are certainly there are many others that Metro is paying their whole salary for.
Exactly. Right. Okay. Well, good. That clears it up. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council Lady Gilmore, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the child abuse cases and just are they being handled effectively? I know there's been really a push for the domestic cases, which are very, very important, but I just was wondering, could you speak to the child abuse case and the prosecution and just kind of the follow through on that and how we're doing as a city?
Well, I think that certainly I think Nashville does an excellent job throughout, from both the investigation through the prosecution of child sex abuse cases. We have 3 lawyers who that's all they do is they handle child sexual and physical abuse, serious physical abuse cases. And we have we also have victim witness coordinators that also specialize in handling the child victims. And the fact is, these are not because they involve children. They require sort of special handling. Again, like Councilwoman Berry's question, about someone else to handle gang cases, would that be valuable? Yes. Would it be valuable to have someone else, an additional person in child sex abuse? Absolutely. I mean, there are very few situations where I'd say we were overstaffed. But the fact is that we have 3 very hardworking, dedicated lawyers that handle those cases.
Do you know how many cases we have a year?
Well, it's a great big funnel as far as the number of cases that are referred initially to the police or to the Department of Children's Services. Hundreds of those, if not thousands, are screened on an annual basis. Probably, but as far as actually tried, where they plead guilty or whatever, they're probably about 120, 125 a year. We report those numbers to the state legislature every year. I'd be happy to send you a copy of our report.
Sure. And are you finding a lot of them are repeat offenders, or are you catching them the first time?
Oh, it's a combination of both.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, General Johnson, appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.